Hello, my name's Charlie Morris and welcome to How Will Cars Be Fuelled, where we're going to be discovering the different ways where we're going to be powering our cars over the next 20 years. Let us go back to the 19th century, where this was the way people were transported around, until 1886, when Carl Benz invented the patent motor car, which was powered by gasoline. This car had three wheels, no roof, and a top speed of 10 miles per hour. Since then, there have been giant leaps in safety, comfort, and efficiency. In 2022 alone, there were 85 million motor cars produced, and an estimated 1.47 billion cars exist around the world. However, today we face a problem with climate change and global warming becoming an increasing issue. We must take changes to the way we live. Transport accounts for 30% of the global carbon emissions, and 72% of these emissions come from road transportation. These carbon emissions are released through the combustion of petrol and diesel. Although diesel cars produce 20% less CO2 than petrol, they emit harmful carcinogens and nitrous oxides into the atmosphere. The main alternative to combustion-powered cars are battery electric vehicles. These have an electric motor to power the wheels, which is fueled by a large traction battery pack, which you can plug into a wall outlet or an electric charger. Because it runs on electricity, this vehicle emits no emissions and makes very little sound. They also often outperform most equivalent combustion-powered cars in their initial acceleration, meaning its power is instantaneously delivered. Let's find out from some EV owners on what their experiences of driving electric has been like.
I originally went for the Polestar 2 purely to save tax. It was a company car and I saved about £350 per month on my tax code. And what frustrated me was doing 200 or 300 miles per day in my previous job. I would sometimes get myself to Cobham, for example, and it would take an hour and a half to sort of get onto a charging point. Charging at home costs about £6, £7 to do 220, 230 miles. But when I was out and about, I remember getting sort of stuck in far west Wales, and I had to go to a charging point that was £1 per kilowatt. So in effect, that cost me a best part of £80 to do 200 miles. Summing up, you know, the Polestar was great. I think in a couple of years' time that they'll be good. I'm currently ordering a new company car at the moment. I'm not going to go electric again this time. I'm probably going to go plug-in hybrid.
I owned a Nissan Leaf, which was great for short journeys and had low running costs. However, when I owned the car, the charging infrastructure wasn't great and the car only had a range of about 75 miles. At the end of the day, it didn't suit what I needed, so I've gone back to a Seat Leon. This serves its purpose, and for this moment in time, I won't be going for the electric cars and I'll be sticking with the diesel.
I've been driving electric cars since 2009. That little Mitsubishi, I'd take my kids to school in it, and it would do 50 miles to one charge. And if you put the heater on, it would be 30 miles to one charge. And the kids would have their coats and hats on and scarves because we couldn't put the heater on. And then, Daddy, are we going to run out and all this? So my car is a Tesla Model 3, and it will, it will do over 300 miles on one charge. And I go everywhere in it. I've been to Scotland, I've been to France, 780 miles on 3 charges. The car I've got there is 41,000 miles, 4 years, and all I've done is change the back tyres and check the brakes over. No servicing, no big bills, nothing. So for me, my experience is that they're completely reliable, outperform a BMW M3 in terms of handling and acceleration. And if that's the future, bring it on.
However, there are many aspects of owning electric cars that may deter people from getting rid of their combustion-powered vehicle. These include a limited battery range, which is on average 211 miles. This is nearly half of the 400-mile average from a combustion car. Replacing an EV battery out of warranty costs serious money, but this is less common, and it can be argued that combustion-powered cars do not last forever either. As of March 2024, there are almost 60,000 charging points across the UK, and this is ever rapidly increasing. However, EV owners have reported cases of these charging points not working due to charging points not being serviced regularly enough. Although it is cheaper on average to charge an electric vehicle than the equivalent combustion-powered vehicle, they take a considerably longer amount of time to charge. Even using a rapid 150 kilowatt charger, it will take around 30 minutes to charge an EV. If you use a home charger, it will take nearly 8 hours. Home charging can be hard in dense areas as cables are not available for cars kept on the road. Recently, there has been a decline in the sale of used EVs. One of the reasons that this has happened is due to many high-mileage electric vehicles flooding the market that have been used as company cars, due to businesses not having to pay company car tax on zero-emission vehicles. This decline, as well as the date for all new cars being produced to be zero emissions being pushed back to 2035 to 2040, has caused a lot of negative press towards EVs. There have been many questions asked about the ethics and environmental impact of electric cars. For example, it has been suggested that producing a lithium-ion battery is more environmentally harmful than the manufacturing process for the average petrol-powered car. Some people have even suggested that EVs might die altogether and we may have to use alternative fuels to power our cars in the future. I spoke to former Top Gear and Fifth Gear host and EV expert Quentin Wilson, who runs a campaign for electric vehicles to become more accessible to all drivers. He set the record straight about some of the myths regarding electric vehicles.
The negativity towards electric cars is just a torrent, absolutely. And the House of Lords Environment and Climate Change Committee singled this out in their report this year and said it was a concerted campaign. Now, we don't know where this comes from. Some of it may come from vested interests, because obviously there's trillions and trillions of dollars that are going to be disrupted by electric cars and fossil fuel. You'd expect them to kind of not roll over and just let this happen. But a lot of it is newspaper editors who think if we do an anti-electric car story, we'll get clicks. So it's a clickbait thing. And electric cars have now become a kind of cultural wedge issue. So you've got people on the left who generally like electric cars, and then people on the extreme right who want to carry on driving their diesels and see it as an encroachment of their personal liberties. So you've got this real, almost daily campaign against EVs. And you see it across all the media. You see it TV, radio, print, online. And the Daily Mail published a story a while ago saying that EVs are responsible for potholes. So they took an Asphalt Industry Alliance report, which comes out every year, which is saying that heavier vehicles were causing potholes. And instead of admitting that the Asphalt Industry report didn't mention any EVs at all, they put the word EV in the headlines, and the the Environmental Climate Intelligence Unit complained to the press watchdog, and the press watchdog found in their favor and said, look, no, the report didn't say this. So the Mail had to grudgingly print this little retraction. But it just shows you that what's happening is that a lot of people are writing these anti-EV stories, and they're journalists, and they've never driven an EV. They don't own them. They have no experience of charging them, and they're telling the rest of us not to buy EVs. And it's become a really divisive cultural issue. Sort of, you're a traitor, you've gone against the grain of combustion cars. And you see this great big kind of constructed narrative that they cause potholes, that they wear out their tires faster, that they're more polluting than combustion cars, that you can't recycle the batteries. A man said to me the other day that, I'm not going to buy an electric car. They throw the old batteries into the sea, If you get them to understand it, actually the stuff they're reading broadly is not true at all.
There have also been other fuel alternatives emerging, such as hydrogen, which has already been used in cars but is very rare. The downside of hydrogen as a fuel is that due to its simple composition, it's highly flammable in large quantities. Another alternative is synthetic e-fuels, which have been developed by Porsche, used for their racing cars. This can be processed into synthetic petrol and diesel. At the moment, e-fuels are only developed on small level and cost a lot of money to develop, meaning currently synthetic fuels are mainly used in motor racing, and by 2026, Formula One will use 100% sustainable fuel. Let's go back to Quentin to discuss the different alternatives of fuel.
We've reached a stage now where they are technologically really, really good. And I think what we're looking at now is in the next 5 years, you'll see that technology really get better and better and better. Because look, the combustion cars had 130 years to mature and evolve. And in this short period of time, 15 years since I've been driving them, that technology has just leapt in terms of efficiency and distance and range and battery life as well. So we'll see solid state batteries. We'll see less critical minerals. We'll see sodium ion batteries. We'll see graphite anodes, things like that. silicon anodes rather, to replace graphite. And the money that's going into battery R&D at the moment because of electric cars is unprecedented. Once we really do start getting to grips with it, then we will see ranges expand to maybe 1,000 miles. There's Caterpillar talking about a battery. This is a Chinese firm that'll do 600 miles to one charge and have a 1,000,000 kilometer warranty. So those are the things that we will see change in the next 5 to 10 years.
Hydrogen cars, there's been the Toyota Mirai and a few others around for a fair while now. Why did they never take off?
Looking at the DVLA website to see how many Toyota Mirais have been registered in the UK, and it's 98. So, they haven't really flown out of showrooms. And the reason that is because we've only got 11 hydrogen fuel stations in the UK now. And I think across Europe, there's a little over 200. The problem is it's the expense. So you create a fuel cell car, and the Mirai was about, what, 80 grand. But then you've got to make the electricity to make the hydrogen, and it uses 5 times the energy that it would create to charge an electric car. So that market seems to be really, really, really retreating. The big problems, it's cost. It's not as green as electricity. If you think it's expensive to do electric charging infrastructure, you wait till you try to do hydrogen, which makes filling a Mirai, and there are Mirai owners who are absolutely up in arms in California, at about $400. So unless there is a breakthrough, unless we can produce it at scale and cheaply and sort the infrastructure out, I think it will be reserved to heavy goods vehicles, possibly marine, maybe even short-haul aviation. But most experts say that when it comes to passenger cars, it's just not viable. But again, we've got the same problem with synthetic fuels, that it's going to cost quite a bit to make them out of green electricity. And remember that you're still burning hydrocarbons, and there's still a tailpipe emission. It's going to cost about 4 times the price of normal petrol and diesel. For performance cars, Porsche have got this factory. Possibly, yes, but I don't think there's any really long-term solution. Life cycle emissions from an EV in 2030 would be 53% lower than for a combustion car powered by synthetic fuels. So you look at the environmental argument, and it doesn't really stack up. And then IPCC say they're up to 3 times more expensive than conventional fossil fuels. So those are big barriers to overcome. So by all means, look, let's develop it. We've got to have parallel technologies. We've got to have hydrogen, and see if that's viable. We'll have to look at synthetic fuels and see that that's viable as well. But I think, the data we have at the moment suggests that there are big hurdles to overcome. I think we will have seen by 2050 a battery that lasts probably 1,000,000 miles and could do between 600 and 1,000 miles to one charge. All this sort of stuff is up for grabs. But I think, knowing what we know now and the speed which the technological change has taken place with batteries, I think we're going to be powered by battery cars with very long ranges and very long lifespans.
It is plainly clear that electric cars are not going anywhere, and we have a long way to go before these alternative fuels are available for everyone to use. So let's go and talk to Sky's Tim Arnold, who has been driving his Hyundai Ioniq 5 for 2 years. Tell us about some of your experiences.
Well, great experiences. So I started driving semi-electric cars about 10 years ago. I started a Prius, a hybrid, so I really quite like that electric feel. And this was my first purely going electric option, and I've never looked back. I can charge it up at a high-speed charger, so if I'm on a long journey, and I want to pull into a motorway service area, I can charge this from 20% to 80% in 20 minutes. So that was my kind of thing. And obviously I was a bit unsure at the start, like everyone says, range anxiety, that kind of thing. The only thing I would say is very early on, so the first year I had it, I came to Exeter, and I think on the way I stopped at a charging station. I had to wait about 10 minutes to get on. So sometimes you find with chargers, you get there, it appears to work, you plug it in, you swipe your card, the car payment doesn't work, or you go to a next charger, plug it in, the communication with the car doesn't work, you go, oh, well, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to have to go on to another place to get a charge.
Yeah.
So that's been a kind of issue. But now, I mean, this trip today, I mean, here in Exeter, you've got excellent charging, right?
Yeah.
You've got Ionity stations, M5 services. You've got nearly 60 chargers there. So I arrived last night on 40%, all the way from Kent, and I literally charged it up in 20 minutes as I checked into my hotel.
And finally, as someone who owns an electric car and has driven one for 2 years, how do you think we'll be fueling our cars in 20 years' time?
Well, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I don't think it's completely electric because I live on a house that's got a drive. There's good at charging infrastructure in my journey, but that's not the same for everyone. If you live in a flat or terrace houses, you know, are you going to trail a cable across the street? You know, if you live like over there where you've got those houses parked outside, I think that's the trouble. I think hydrogen, Toyota, who I always used to get cars from before and I still believe in, they're betting on hydrogen as well. They've got electric, but they were the leaders on hybrid. I think hydrogen is the way forward. Maybe though, this is my kind of idea the other day, why don't we have hydrogen stations and then have charging points around those, rather than trying to get electric to the actual location? Is it not possible to have some sort of hydrogen power station, mini power station, and charging around it?
In my opinion, I agree with Tim that in 20 years there will be multiple ways that cars will be fuelled depending on how you will use your car. I also think that petrol and diesel cars will be around with electric assistance as hybrids for a long time. However, I do not think that synthetic fuels will be incredibly widespread and they will be used on more exclusive and high-powered cars. Since 1886, cars have never changed as much as they are now, and the technological changes over the next 20 years will be unimaginable. So it's safe to say, there's never been a more exciting time to be a car enthusiast.